Matthew Bennett, Dovetail Solar and Wind.
Sure.
Thank you, Paul, for coming here.
Thank
I know
you.
you've been touring all around the state. You're in Cleveland already today, and you must be exhausted at this point.
Oh, it's exciting! My God, all this stuff. I love to see this. It sounds like a politician's speech, but I'm not running for office, so I mean it. You know, the people really underestimate how powerful even 50 people that want to do something is in politics. It's extremely powerful. And so it's great to see you, because obviously there's a lot of interest in this community to do something, and you might actually do it, you know. And it's
my question, similar to how we talked about the energy mix, or the solution being a mix of diverse sources, or whatever sources are locally appropriate. I'm wondering about the diversity of approaches in deploying those resources, and what other options are there besides rolling out large bonds, and what options are there in terms of how those bonds are rolled out to break things up into pieces that can be implemented locally, because since we don't have a large infrastructure for solar, and there are really only a handful of companies in the state installing solar, for instance. If we roll out one huge bond like you did in San Francisco, or the scale obviously will be smaller here, but we're risking basically having to use companies from out of state to implement this, and thus the money going away from the community and away from the region. How can we design this project in a way to make it more decentralized, in a way that allows Ohio companies and Ohio manufacturers to be involved in the deployment? And I think that, you know, as most people probably know, we don't have good wind resources here in Southeast Ohio. We don't have, you know, a volcano 100 feet down. We don't have hydro. We have some old dams on the river which are being retrofitted with small hydro, which is not maybe as good as tearing the dams out, but it's not adding additional dams. We're mostly retrofitting. But we are somewhat limited in our choices, and solar is clearly one of the options that is available and deployable right now. Solar is here, it works, yep. It's long lasting, it's really reliable. So how can we tailor our system to work for what we have, the resources that we have, and the infrastructure and installation capacity that we have?
Well, there are several sides of that question. One is the sort of choice of technology, and I agree, you have to choose what you've got. And so if solar is what you've got and biomass is what you've got, then do solar and biomass. The demand side, everyone's got demand, and so demand side technology works everywhere and should be a big piece of the action. As far as the local hiring, I have seen some jurisdictions condition their contracts to award points to suppliers that use local installers, contractors to do the work. I've seen other communities require suppliers to do so. There are often state laws that constrain the ability of cities to do that. So it depends on your kind of legal constraints in the city, what it's able to do legally. Some cities have actually required that city residents must be hired, or that points would be awarded in the competitive bidding process to those who commit to hiring locals. So there are ways to ensure that the economic benefits are local, and I agree that it's important that they be so in order for sustainability, economic sustainability, to result.
So we're talking about a lot of money, and traditionally so much of the extraction of resources has been controlled, you know, by out of state. Mm-hmm. And so it would just be a shame to go down this road and see millions of dollars exiting the economy.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm wondering, with the bond itself, is there a way to structure the bond, or how are you doing it in San Francisco? Is it broken down into chunks, megawatt chunks, or is there a process for how that's put out?
One of the one of the key factors here in making this approach work is that you actually do need a fairly significant financial entity to underwrite your agreements. So if you want a guarantee to residents and businesses that their rates will meet or beat the existing rates, then you've got to have one entity that's legally liable for both the commodity service delivery and the rollout. Otherwise, if you basically have a lawsuit nightmare on your hands. And from a risk perspective, this is one of the issues that will come up when you try to implement programs. The utility will come in and say, this is going to bankrupt your general fund. If this worst case scenario occurs, you have a disaster. You're going to have 20 lawsuits. It's very important, we call it the single lawsuit strategy. It's very important that you structure your deals so if things go badly, there's one entity you're going to sue. And in fact, it's better to arrange it so they have to sue you. And so you basically arrange the bond so that they're deprived of payment. And so they will have to sue you in the situation. You don't want to have a situation where you've broken up the contract into 25 pieces and the photovoltaics component are working for some staff person in the city and the commodity service guy is under a totally different contract, because if your solar guy doesn't perform and the commodity provider then has to go to wholesale markets to cover the power that's not being generated because he's not under schedule, whose fault is it? And it's all got to be bundled into one black box, to use the term of industry.
But the contracts can be awarded at whatever chunks the bonding authority wants to release them, though, right?
Well, you see, if there are chunks, there are tranches of bond issuances according to the rollout schedule of the energy service provider. But there are no chunks by category of technology.
Right.
And so, you see what I'm saying? So, does that work for you?
Well, this is probably getting a little more too detailed for us after being here for so long. So,
yeah.
But I think,
we've run into this issue,
yeah.
And I understand your
I know the
concern.
interstate commerce laws prevent us from saying you have to use Ohio installers, but the scale of each award can be adjusted. It's just like you said, the points can be adjusted. There are small things that can be done to keep the local economy as involved as possible. So.
Yes, and I think you should do that.
So at this point, I'd like to say we could continue the conversation perhaps on a more individual level and adjourn this meeting. If that's all right with everyone. I see some people are trying to move out, so this is one conversation and many to be held in the future, I'm sure, once Oahu's back. We'll keep you in mind. Thank you.